Yep. Thanks, Bippin. So for those of you who don't know me, I am the secretary of the board for SIM. I've transitioned into that role in January, so I'm having a lot of fun, especially in this virtual version. We've gotten a lot of opportunities to network with the other SIM chapters a little bit more because of the virtual format. So that has been great. In my day job, I am an IT project manager at Discount Tire. Right now, I'm supporting the replacement of our appointment system with a Salesforce version integrated with our legacy system. So there's a lot of custom there, and I'm looking forward to getting that rolled out to our first 5 pilot stores and getting their feedback to see what else we can do for them. Joining me is my CIO from Discount Tire, Gary Desai. He's been with Discount Tire for about a year now, and he's already made a lot of sweeping changes, as you will see in some of the questions and the visual aids that we have in the deck here. So I'm excited to share those with you. But I'm also excited to introduce Brad Lontz, who has been a SIM member with us for several years and is currently CIO of CopperPoint. He actually came back from Sacramento to join CopperPoint and is happy to be back in Arizona. All right, let me progress the slide. To get us started in terms of KPIs and how we align with the business and really make sure that that communication is open between IT and the business, I thought I would give some examples of what we do at Discount Tire. Specifically because I am a project manager, we do have this lovely biweekly status report that we do for our executive sponsors and the wider executive audience. And then almost everybody else who says they're curious and wants to get added to the distribution list gets a copy as well. And what we do is we do the typical the red, yellow, green stoplights for cost, schedule, performance, which we consider both scope and quality, and then resources. So that gives everybody a quick hit of how are we doing, what are the areas that maybe an executive can help out, and if they are interested in the specifics, then we've got the issues, risks, key decisions, change requests, the latest milestones and tasks that we've been working against, the Gantt chart and the financials. So I've heard it described as there's everything you could possibly need to know about how the project is doing is in our biweekly status reports. And then our portfolio managers do this amazing thing where they take all of the top 28 projects reports and they extract the executive summary and the stoplights and they put them in an actual portfolio list for us so that somebody can print out the entire list and go, how is the entire portfolio doing? What is the latest status? And have that view as well. And that's one of the things we see as helping us communicate with the business to make sure that there are no surprises if we do need to move a date or we need to ask for more resources or and sometimes we pull the date in too, and those are always great, but it's always good to have something in your sponsor's mailbox so that they can go look up how things are going and have that come to a discussion with a little bit more detail without having to get somebody to download the entire context to them before they need to make a decision. One other thing I want to highlight that we've been doing at Discount Tire, thanks to Gary, is that to me, what service desk looks like to IT versus what it looks like to the business, and especially when you're talking about the difference between a business executive that maybe gets the white glove treatment or the priority one responses to everything versus somebody that comes in the doors, then they're being onboarded and their computer doesn't work or what have you, like that. Those are very subjective experiences that are to the individual, might be circumstantial based off of location or who was available to support and all those kinds of things. So I find it very valuable when we start applying KPIs to our service desk. And generally these are KPIs that you don't share with the business, but they're how you understand whether or not the escalations that you're hearing are the exception or the rule. And so Gary has done a great job helping our service desk put in ways to measure how we're doing, processes to review incidents. I actually just got to sit in on one of these incident reviews, the root cause analysis meetings, and that was a new experience for me. I've never sat in on one of those for the operations team, and they were definitely doing some good stuff to move the needle forward. And as a high level of the kinds of things we're doing, that and the progress we've made in the year that Gary's been with us, is that since April of 2020, you can see all the categories that we expected to see incidents in, and the fewer categories. I think we reduced down to, looks like maybe 15 of them from 30. So those are the kinds of metrics that I saw at our IT town hall that really, as a member of IT that isn't in the service desk, was very encouraging to me, especially since when I first joined Discount Tire, I would say that nobody will ever tell you that our onboarding experience is amazing, not for, at least not from a speed to getting up and running. That was 2 years ago. Now, if I get a resource on, they are ready to go within 3 days, including all the hiccups that you could possibly think of for VPN and all of those fun things. So we're definitely moving in the right direction. And another version of that for our preventative actions. So we're doing a lot to be proactive. That's where the root cause analysis meeting was, actually, is then we generate, okay, what actions do we do to make sure that this doesn't happen again? And that's always great to see as a PM who finishes the project, conducts the lessons learned, and doesn't always see that something happens. So it's good that we're using ServiceNow to actually, like, we've customized ServiceNow amazingly well to do these kinds of things for us, to really give IT our own KPIs to understand how we're doing and where we can improve. And that has been amazing as an IT member. But I definitely want to bring Gary and Brad on to talk, because they have more to say about how they align with the business and what that looks like and how that translates into the IT organization. So Gary, I've pulled up our dream slide if you would like to jump in here.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, we're getting an echo. There's an echo coming?
Yes, it looks like you're logged in on 2 devices.
Am I?
One and mute the other.
Can you hear me now? Well, why don't we start with Brad and I'll rejoin.
Okay, we'll go to Brad. All right, let's get through a couple of slides and get the Brads.
Sound like a disco club there for a minute.
I was just going to complain because I didn't think it was fair that Gary gets to show up twice. I only have one login. I mean, this kind of seems a little slanted. So, hey, I can just dive in while Gary's reconnecting. So these are some similar slides, and I just shared these. I thought TJ did a really nice job kind of walking through the slides that Discount Tire uses. Very similar kind of thought process here. So we start with bucketing our initiatives really in kind of 5 strategic pillars. So we have a really large initiative around moving the enterprise to Guidewire, which is a core platform from an insurance perspective. We have an enterprise data warehouse, some digital capabilities we're focused on, and then strategic projects and running the business. So we bucket our initiatives in this as a way just to kind of show alignment of these initiatives back to broader kind of business objectives and initiatives that we've talked about from a leadership perspective. So, and then if you want to jump to the next one, yeah. So then this is a similar kind of a roadmap. This just really shows us those initiatives across time, so we can. It's the same initiatives, same buckets down the left-hand side that you saw before, but just this is a way to look at the initiatives kind of over time and just kind of see the progress that we're making and where we are, where we're ahead, where we're behind, that sort of thing. So. And then the last one is, again, real similar to something that TJ had showed. All those, ours is much more simplistic. So it just kind of shows you the initiative highlights, You know, in a lot of cases, we have different work streams. So we'll do the status with some highlights of those various work streams. Again, the roadmap and then the budget. And honestly, we probably, when we review these, we review these on a monthly basis as part of our enterprise program office. And we really, while we flash this up, we spend most of the time talking about the risks and issues. So it's, you know, it's informational. Most people will look at this ahead of time and they'll glean out of it if we're on budget, over budget, you know, on schedule and so forth. But I prefer to focus the conversation in the broader meeting where, you know, where there are risks, what are we doing around those risks, and if there's any issues and what we're doing to address the issues. I think that it helps, and it's also more helpful for the project team. I think if you just focus on, are we on budget? You know, there's this natural then tendency for the project team to feel like, oh no, we're green, and versus, you know, nobody's green all the time, right? That's why we have project managers and everything else, is to help deal with the issues that come up. So we really try to just focus on that in the discussion.
So Brad, I would love it if you would expand on that concept of no, we're green. Like, what steps do you personally take when you sense that that's what's happening in the conversation?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, nobody. I've rarely, maybe in the first few months of a project, but after the first few months of a project, I've rarely been on a project that had no risks, no issues. So if you aren't reporting any, you're probably not really digging in and thinking about, at least on the risk side, right? So, you know, if I don't see any, then I'll usually push on that just to try to, you know, kind of force the discussion around, okay, well, let's think about that. You know, have we really communicated externally enough, or, you know, will we get pushback from the agents, or, you know, so forth. So just try to make sure we're pushing it. I think the other thing though that's important is, this gets into a little bit of the culture, and you have to, as you're going through these, you have to make sure that you don't punish a project team that's yellow or even red, right? I mean, you want, I say it all the time, bad news is not a fine wine, right? Let's just get it out early, and it doesn't age well. So let's just talk about the bad news and deal with it. And I think if the project team feels like, you know, they can raise issues and productively deal with them, and it's not an immediately, well, who's to blame for this? Then I think that also helps. So just kind of doing anything you can to foster that type of a culture where, you know, if you're not yellow every now and then, you're probably not pushing as hard as you could. So, you know, I look at it a little bit more that way, as if you're not stubbing your toe every now and then you're probably taking it a little easy, and we could go a little faster.
Yep, that's a great point, especially when we're in an environment where our business is always asking us to go faster.
Yeah, right.
It's kind of a double-edged sword at that point. If somebody really is trying to always call their work green, that you then start asking those kinds of questions, and you'll definitely find out whether or not there were some risks that will fall out. And definitely the concept of you're looking at the risks and issues as a KPI. That is the purpose of a KPI, right? Like, what do you do with the KPI if it doesn't tell you where you need to take action?
Yeah, and I think this is our opportunity to connect. You know, the KPIs. The KPIs are always, I think, difficult from a technology perspective, right? Because most of us grew up in technology, and so your immediate reaction is, well, I want to talk about uptime of servers, and I want to talk about, you know, how well the network's performing and those kinds of things. And all of a sudden, everybody's eyes glaze over in the room, right? And so I think this is when you're talking about projects, that's the opportunity that you have to connect with your business partners on what are we delivering for you, what kind of value are we getting out of these projects. And one thing that I've started doing over the last few years, it was not my own idea. So full disclosure, I stole it from somebody I met that worked at Amazon. But he was walking me through, as they start a project at Amazon, they actually write the press release and do this whole film of what it's going to be like when it's done. So this is how they're going to advertise the project at the end, but they do it at the beginning. And it's an incredible, so we don't film it or anything. We don't have Amazon's budget, but we, have literally written the press release, and it's really, really interesting how much alignment that brings when you have to crystallize into a press release, what is really success? What is this going to change? How is this going to look? And then we use that throughout the project when people are talking about, no, we have to have this. You can kind of go back to the press release and say, well, does that really impact this press release? If we don't do this, will we have to change the press release? Because if not, then it didn't really alter the success of the project, at least as we defined it and thought about it up front. And I think that's been really helpful for us, because a lot of times you can get a weird dynamic where IT feels very committed to scope, schedule, budget, and yet the business team may feel more committed to, hey, I just want to make sure when we go live, I don't have to explain. If I'm the product owner, I don't want to have to explain to my peers and my department and my team that I didn't get every feature that they asked for, right? And so there's this kind of dynamic of is your success really aligned? And if you can talk about from a press release perspective, then you're much more aligned around, this is what we defined as success, and it has a time basis to it, and certainly there's a cost to it, but you've really crystallized what's really important. So
Well, that sounds like that's very effective and amazing. I'm probably gonna have to steal that for
have
our
at it.
project.
It's not mine to steal, so you can have it.
Well, great. And that, to me, that's the reason. Something that reminds me of is when you talk to some authors, they say begin at the end. You want to know where you're trying to go, and then when you start getting distracted and you have some fence posts, I especially love when you say that the question is, does it impact the press release? Are we going to have to change it if we don't do this? Those are definitely questions that make that scoping conversation a lot easier to wrap your head around.
Mm. Yeah, because it's not just, well, it's not in the charter, so you don't get it, right? It's, which just sounds, it's kind of the same, but it sounds much more technical versus if you use the press release, it's still kind of a scoping document, still, define success and everything, but it feels more like it was, well, we put this together collaboratively. You should have done that on the charter too, but it just right. It sounds a little better. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm definitely going to have to try that. All right. Gary, I see that you've joined us. Do you want to go ahead and speak and see if we're good there?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can
Yep.
hear you.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Sorry for mess up here. I have a new background there.
Yeah, that is a new one for us.
Yeah, we are going to put that for everybody now. We got 22 of these different pictures, TJ. Hopefully you'll get one.
Awesome. I'm excited.
Coming through. Okay. All right. So, Gary decided discount tires. So hopefully everyone knows our business. It's changing tires, and we've got 1,100 shops out there in 36 states. So the culture of this company is very, very different. It's very employee focused company. I'm really blessed to work with Discount Tire because it's very, very unlike any other company that I've worked with. Okay. And this is our dream slide. And what the senior management or the chairman will tell us is that we have only one mission. And the mission is to make more dreams come true, or dreams come true, right, of our employees. That's it. It's not to make money and margins and all that kind of stuff. That's not what we focus on. We focus on making dreams come true, which is very, very employee focused. We focus on our employees who then in turn focus on our customers. And then the customer rewards us with more and more business. And that's why we've been growing profitably every year. Last 19 years, we've added 50 shops and all kinds. It's a great story. So this is the dream slide. We walk all our folks through it. I'm not going to go over the details on this. We're short of time. But then what I wanted to talk to you a little bit about is the KPI, right? So traditional KPIs, like Brad said, there's two of them, right? One is system availability, right? If the system is down, people are going to complain. And one of my old bosses had told me, Gary, if your availability is below 99.5 as a CIO, you need to start worrying. The customers are going to, senior executives are going to call you, and you're going to have trouble. So that was the magic number he had given me at that time. That was 30 years ago. 99.5, below 99.5 availability, you will hear from your customer. So that's, those are traditional metrics. The other traditional metric we talked about is that Brad mentioned was the projects, right? So how much new functionality are you delivering? What are the projects? So for this year, we have 28 initiatives that we have identified with the business executives, and we track to that, and we have your traditional metrics again for those initiatives, your schedule, your quality, your cost, your benefit, and an overall metric. So five green balls, and we go over that. So that's all traditional. What I want to talk to you though is something more than that, and that is building capability, right? Building that IT capability in your department for a sustainable performance, going forward and becoming world class. Okay. And so when you try to look at that, that's a different ball game. Building that process, building that capability, and this slide talks a little bit about how do we get better, those kinds of things, disciplined in thought and action. Let's go to the next slide and I'll tell you what I'm talking about, right? So we have identified 8 areas, okay? 8 areas where we want to build capabilities, and we want to measure them. So there's the performance measure for that, and that's a key performance measure in that area. Okay, and let me tell you what those 8 areas are. One is people, right? And it's IT employee satisfaction. Okay, how satisfied are our employees, and in that also comes the skill set and stuff like that. But that's the big deal, right? It's people. And then the next one is the stakeholders, right? Our business customers. We don't call them customers, we call them stakeholders, because we want to be an outcome-based IT department, stakeholders, and their satisfaction. The third is operations. Now, operations is the classic. We have the KPIs for that. That's the systems availabilities and all that kind of stuff. And that's how you measure operations, okay? And then cost, right? What is our approach to cost? How do you perform on budget, and resources? How do you resource? Is every asset properly utilized? So we have metrics for that. Processes, right? Very important, right? What are our VMO processes? What are our change control processes? There's just so many. What are portfolio intake processes? What are our demand and capacity management processes? So you want to improve on that. And then innovation, right? This is a new one for most people, but that's important. Are we an innovative organization? Are we doing innovation in IT? Are we thinking out of the box? Are we using new technologies, right? And what is the key performance for that? Now, how are you going to measure that and stuff like that, right? And then projects, that's pretty standard, but I talk about it in operations projects. Everybody does it. How many projects you got? What are the KPIs on that one? And then last but not least, vendor management processes and vendors, right? How are we doing with our vendors? Are they happy with us? Are they angry with us? And they are, some of them are. And we have to figure out, are they angry because we have a bureaucracy in terms of approving the purchase orders? Or are they just mad at me because I've shut down their margins and really done a good, better, best process and taken everything and made it a commodity and really squeezed the margins out? What is making them angry or what is making them happy? So those are the areas we want to improve on and make services and keep key performance metrics on. Let me go to the next slide, please. TJ, it's not moving, or it's not moving on my screen.
Oh, it's slow. It's a lag.
So I'm going to show you, how do you measure these things, right? And there are several ways to do that. If you get to the slide.
Gotta get out of the VPN, TJ.
Don't know.
Well, it's fully loaded for me, Gary.
It's loaded for you? Well,
yes.
maybe it's just me, huh? Okay, that's fine. I should know this.
No, it's not-
I
it's
don't
not
see
just
it
you.
either.
Oh,
There are
really?
3 tires. This is only one tire. You
You
see
know what?
3 discount tires.
I'm sorry, I got it.
Yeah, there you go.
Better? There you go.
All right. So, what we have to do is, right, we have to baseline what we've done this stuff now. We've baselined ourselves on these 8 metrics. And how do you baseline yourself, right? We did a management survey of the IT management. There's 45 of us here. And we really asked them, what do you think? How do you think, what do you think about our people? What do you think about our capabilities and stuff like that in each of these areas? So that's a baseline survey that we did. And that I think is that's the blue circle there that we came out, right? A 3 out of 5 or 2 out of 5 and stuff like that. So that's the baseline over there. Now we're at a place where saying, okay, that's what the management team feels, but what is it really? So we're coming out now with metrics, right? In operations, is it 99.5% availability? And if it's 99.5% availability, you get a ranking of 1. And if you have a 99.9% availability, you get a ranking of 5, okay, or whatever. So and so on and so forth. For people, right? How many, for people, it is one of the things we measure is regrettable turnover, right? So, how much regrettable turnover did we have of the people during the year? And that will tell us. And we also do people surveys to tell us how the people are feeling and things like that. Yeah, Bipin, I can stop. You can ask questions. Absolutely.
Gary, the baseline piece, did you do it within IT or did you have the business input to understand what the baseline is?
Hey, what a great question, right, Bipin? And I started this, okay? So again, I'm new with the company and I started this. So here's where we are. Here's the plan. We haven't done it. So there's the baseline date with the what the IT management feels, and that's the blue, okay? What I'm going to do now, what we're going to do, is we're going to do the same thing for our our business executives. And we have 40, I believe we have 40 VPs and AVPs in the company, okay? All right, so my CEO, my CFO, we're going to send them the same survey, all right? And then we're going to we're going to plot them, okay? And then what we're going to say, and they're not, this is like a 360 thing, right? You're going to see a difference, right, in the circles, okay? What they perceive us to be, right? And what our team perceives us to be, okay? So that is a perceived gap. That is a gap. Let's just say that's not even that is a gap. Do we agree? That's a gap.
Yep.
And that's a gap we have to close. Now they might think we are better than ourselves. I doubt that, but okay. Let's just say they are somewhere there. Maybe they are at that. But there is another thing, and there is reality. Okay. And reality is what this red line is, which is actuals, right? So we think here's our projects. If you look at projects, we're really good at projects. Okay. We've come to a point where we have a professional PMO, TJ is a part of it, right? And we're really doing well on projects. We deliver things on cost, quality, and schedule. And see, we rate ourselves very, very high there on projects. Okay. It's 4 out of 5 or something like that. But the executives might rate us, let's say, 2 out of 5, just for them. But the real measure is okay, how many projects have we done this year? How many did we miss schedule on? How many did we miss quality on? We look at all that and we come with a metric. And then we say, okay, here's what is perceived by the business executives. Here's what the reality is. And here's where we perceive ourselves. And how do we close all that stuff and bring it to a single point, right? What actions do we need to do do we need to improve? Our actuals are good. We just need to communicate to the executives better. Or are we thinking more too highly of ourselves than what the actuals are? And that's the process, Bipin. We're just started this thing, right? So we had this, we're going to send the survey out to the executives hopefully in the next month, okay? And each team, so we've formed 8 teams now, okay? Of 45 people, we formed 8 teams, and each team is focused on making the metrics for their process area so that can be plotted and measured against. And so this year it's really baseline and improve. Next year, we take the feedback and check and adjust. And then year after that is where we really go for world class, which if you look at it, all the metrics are hitting at 5. All those KPIs should be at 5 when we come into that year. Vipin, does that make some sense? Did I answer your question?
Yep, thank you.
Yeah. And generally what you do is, your IT emblem, if you have an emblem or something for IT, this would be your emblem for this year, saying this is what IT looks like this year. Next year, hopefully the emblem will be better. And when we're really done, that's going to be our vision and our emblem discount tire IT, with all those KPIs met on all those process areas. Not an easy task, okay, to do and to hit in all those areas in the proper way. So I think I'll stop there, TJ. In terms of this is a different KPI. It's about building capabilities besides the traditional ones that we all have.
Just a
Right.
quick added question, Gary, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Are you working with any vendors for this? Are you doing it all internally?
Yeah, it's all internal. It's all in. No, we brought a guy from Honeywell, who's a Six Sigma. He's a professional Six Sigma guy, and he was fixing factories. Okay, he was not an IT guy, so he didn't know anything about IT. He's a factory turnaround artist, but a senior guy, Six Sigma. So he's making all the processes, and he's driving the 8 teams and things like that. So no outside vendors. We know the CMMI model, the Carnegie Mellon. We're using that for our measurements, and we're using other standard metrics for our measurements. But we are still thinking through it. The big thing is getting everybody engaged, right? So we meet 1 hour a week. Each team meets 1 hour a week, and every Friday, 3 of the teams do report outs. So you have report outs every 3 weeks or something like that between the 8 teams. So it's interesting getting there. It's a journey, right?
Yep, for sure. All right. So we do intend to do breakout rooms for the group, but before we get to that, wanted to really enjoy the actual panel aspect of this. If you have a question that you would like to pose to our panelists, go ahead and drop that in the chat or come off a mute. Otherwise, I do have some prepped questions that we can use instead. All right, while we're waiting to see if we get anything, I'm going to throw this to both of you, and you guys can to buzz in and decide who gets to answer first. But what is the most important alignment trend between IT and the business that you're seeing today?
Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's a trend or not. I think for me, what's really important is building that transparency, right? And I think just the number of dashboards and things that we've just walked through tonight really highlights the need to be able to communicate in a way and really provide that transparency to everybody on what is going well, what's not going so well, and foster that. So I think that's something I would just throw out as a real key thing.
Yeah, I would actually definitely say that's a trend, because we're in this consumer world where we get to have dashboards for almost every service that we have, right? So
Right.
I see this a lot is we turn to IT then and go, well, you can do that too, right? If Amazon and Google and
Right.
Microsoft can do it, you should be able to do this for me. So I definitely support that as a trend to have more information. Whether or not they read it, that's up to them, but they want it available.
Right.
Gary, what about you? What trends are you seeing with alignment?
Yeah, what I would really want to talk about is alignment, right? Alignment trend, and how do you measure it, right? I was thinking, this is about KPI, right? So how do you measure the alignment? That's what the key question in my mind was. And these guys, the business executives, it's like we are like the electricians, right? If the electricity is working, nobody cares. It goes out, and man, they're on our throats like nobody's business. And that's why you got these system KPIs and availability KPIs and stuff like that. But how do you really measure alignment, right? And to me, you measure alignment by what's the attendance at your portfolio steering meetings, right? Who's attending your portfolio steering meetings? Okay, I'm obviously blessed. It's a great company, but I make sure that the CEO is there. We have portfolio steering meetings every 2 weeks. Okay, every 2 weeks to 1.5 hour. PSC, right? TJ, you know what PSC is,
Yep.
right? She knows. Every 2 weeks, and I make sure that my CEO is there, the CFO is there, the VP of Omni is there. Omni is a big customer. They do a lot of work in customer, and the new revenue generator, who was used to be the PSC CFO. They're all there. It's 100% attendance, fully engaged, and the strategy, the chief corporate officer. They're all there, 100% in there and contributing. Right? that's what tells you, are you getting aligned with these folks or not every 2 weeks? And if they're not there, then I'm upset and I'll call them and say, hey, doesn't work like that. And then the other thing about alignment is, in a company like this is, right, are you invited to the strategy table, right? Where does your CIO report? And is he or she a part of the strategy group, right? And lucky for me, I am. So we have what we call as BSLs, business segment leaders, and there's 20 of them. And obviously I'm a business segment leader, um, with the company leading my segment with the IT segment. But then there are circles within circles, remember, right? So there is a small circle of 7 people that run this company. Okay. Circle of 7, there's 7 of us. And they meet every alternate Thursday in a strategy meeting and decide where the company is going, and where we need to go and what are we going to do. And then we escalate to the other 20, and then it goes down. So are you at that table, and are you contributing, and are you speaking, right? Or are you just an order taker listening, right? And that's where you've got to measure that. And that's, if you can measure that, your attendance, your contribution, things like, look, pandemic, right? Return to work, right? Who's making the decisions? The CIO needs to be a very strong voice in there, saying, hey, this is what we're going to do, and this is the schedule we're going to follow, and we're going to have remote work, or we're not going to have remote work, all that kind of stuff, right? It's not just the CEO. It's you've got to be in there, and then that's when you are aligned 100% in my mind.
Yeah, I thought that was a point that was going through my mind as you were talking, and you ask, how do you measure it? And I don't know how you measure alignment, but I have the exact same feeling as you. I mean, you can kind of tell it just based on the relationship that you have, right? Are you invited? And I used to tell people, I want to make sure that if somebody were invited to our executive leadership, right, when they walk out, I don't want them to be able to go, oh, hey, Brad was the IT guy, right? I mean, if you're the one that when the PowerPoint locks up and they go, hey, can you fix this, right? Then you're not showing up right. So it's that alignment. Are you invited to talking about, strategy? We're thinking about getting into a new market. How would that work? And you're contributing not just on the technology, but on a broader level and at part of those conversations. I think that's critical. I don't know how you measure that, but it's one of those, you kind of know it, or it's not happening.
Or Brad, you hear it. For me, we're doing Honeywell Consumer Products. I was the CIO of Honeywell Consumer Products, and we just had a great leadership team, and we're trying to sell the company, which we sold successfully, very successfully. We sold in the marketplace. But when the private equity guys came in to check us out as a management team, they could not tell who was who. Who's the CIO? Who's the legal person? Who's the marketing? They couldn't tell, right? They're going, man, your team's so good and so business oriented. We can't tell who's the CIO and who's the CFO or who's the legal person. They all speak business. That was a good thing for the team when I was there. It was good. But that's the way it should be. Nobody should be. We should be, right, business executives with a technology slant. That's it, right? That's what they got to look at you as. If they look at you as, now, the thing is, if when we have a national managers meeting or something like that, and the web system goes down, they are going to hold you accountable, because it is your accountability. It's not that you're the technical, it is your accountability, for God's sake. So I have like 4 people right in that room saying, guys, before they look at me, you better make sure everything is up and running. Okay. And my team does. I mean, they do a great job. They're in there. They know that no matter how much we deliver, okay, in terms of customer systems and mobile and stuff like that, if a stupid PC goes down of the CEO while he's speaking or addressing the audience, that's what's going to head against the whole IT department.
Yep. And I have to say, our strike team is amazing for that. They are the best frontline support I have ever met.
I will tell you, I will 100% support that. Yeah, that was the one I was impressed. When I joined in, I go, wow, these guys are good. The strike team we have, I wouldn't trade them for anything else. They're the best. They're the absolute best. The guy, and it's Joe Garrett who runs it. He was just here today. He was helping me on something. I mean, they are really good, aren't they, TJ? They're really
Yes.
good.
Oh, for sure. They are very helpful, knowledgeable, supportive. But hey, we are running close to time, and I do want to give everybody a chance to go into the breakout rooms. But I also see that Anuya put a question in the chat, so I'm actually going to pivot from our original question for the breakout rooms for the rooms to ponder, and actually would love to leverage Anuya's question here about the concept of, are you measuring the value delivered as an IT organization? Are you building the right things? How do you determine that for yourself? And then how do you communicate that to your business stakeholders? It is in the chat for everyone to refer to. But I would love to make that part of the breakout room discussions. I have set up 4 breakout rooms that you should be randomized into. It is set to a 5-minute timer, so quick introductions and then dig right into it. And then there is a 2-minute hook, so you get to do your last minute conversations. But the goal is for you to have a speaker from the room to say, here's the thoughts that came out of our conversations. Here's maybe some open questions we'd like to throw to the panel and get some feedback on. So keep that in mind, designate a speaker for your room and have at it. I'm opening the rooms now. Oh, sorry, it did not auto assign you guys. So that is not gonna work until I do that. It changed all my settings, of course. All right. Nope, it's lying to me. Sorry, guys. Let me recreate these rooms. Yep. Okay. Now that should be taking you to your breakout rooms.
think I
Oh,
tried
the
to
first one's
close the
back.
box. I think I tried to close the box and
Oh.
instead the button bounced me out of the breakout room.
Gotcha. There's too many buttons and prompts.
I know, and especially it's like when it just pops up, it's like, go away. Oh wait.
Yes, the auto push for especially
Mhm.
for the like user license agreement things too. You're just like whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, guys. As you rejoin the big room, I will remind you that it does auto mute you. So if you would like to change that, then that's your prompt
Is
to do
this-
so.
Is this like getting invited back from the kids' table? We get to come back.
Maybe. You really were just listening to the tail end of us, accidentally clicking the leave room button. So,
Yeah.
Derek, you're muted, I think.
I thought I was out there all on my own for a second. I'm like, how do I get back?
Oh, were you stuck in
Yeah.
your room?
You're
Everybody left you.
still at the kids' table.
I'm still, yeah, I'm still
You
at the
can't
low
go to the
table.
adult table unless you get there, but on your own power. All right. So multiple formats for room spokespersons to give us their questions, feedback, thoughts. If you'd like to drop in the chat, I can definitely read it out for you. But I will also welcome you to join us on video / audio to share what your conversations brought up. So I'm going to do reverse room number if you remember what room number you were in. Do we have a representative from room 4?
I don't remember what room we were.
Well, Alan, you're up.
Oh, okay.
Room two.
I was
Room
looking at Diana like thinking, do you remember? Gary, do you remember? So
Room two.
well, good. I will go first then, I guess. So we had a good discussion. My group was Gary and Diana Vowles, and one of the things we talked about from a KPI standpoint is one of the challenges is you need to really take the time up front to identify what the most important KPI is or are, the couple that you need to really track, because one of the things with data nowadays, it's really, really easy to get overwhelmed with the data. And once you start going down that rabbit hole, you can end up with quite a few different KPIs that you're tracking, and then you lose your audience. I think like Brad said before, people glaze over and you kind of lose it. So I've seen dashboards in many organizations I've worked with, and consulted with, where the dashboards just have too much stuff on it. You really got to narrow that down and really focus on what are the key KPIs that are going to really help drive towards the goals that you're trying to achieve. And I think that's a challenge. It is. And I think as leaders, it's kind of on us to provide oversight and hold people accountable to picking the right KPIs.
Well, that's a great point, because there's definitely I know I don't read all of the emails that I get for sure, and I'm sure nobody on this call does, and I'm sure you guys get probably 10 times as many emails as I do, but I definitely see that flip side of that conversation is very true, because what I see as a project manager, right, my goal is to make sure that all of the information about my project is out there for people to find, because otherwise I just get all the extra IMs and calls and emails asking for it. So there's definitely a lean towards the providing all of the information, but certainly as leaders, we need to have those targeted, either the conversations, do a stakeholder analysis, figure out who needs to know what, and make sure that we're not completely flooding our stakeholders with information that they're going to ignore. And that only causes frustration for everyone all around. Sure. Great. Thank you, Alan, for sharing. Do we have somebody from room 3? Nobody remembers if they were in room 3. All right. While somebody else gets ready to speak from a different room, I do want to invite Marcia to share her thoughts that she brought up in our room. Marcia, are you still
Thank you. Yeah, I am. I'm sorry. I was unmuting. I was just sharing. We kind of had an extended conversation around, how do we know if IT is hitting the mark from a value perspective when we talk about KPIs and keeping alignment. And I was just kind of candidly saying that Brad had made a good comment that that's really hard to measure. And so I was kind of spinning on what could we do to measure that, and OKRs came to mind as, the objective should kind of really concretely call out business value as you know, the teams and organization move to create those, and then those key results and measures tie back into that business value. And so that may be a framework to, you know, effectively try to create or get after some sort of metric-based view of, you know, is IT bringing value and in a measurable way, keeping alignment.
Does everybody know what OKRs are? No, I had to actually like quickly Google it. I see Mark shaking his head. Marsha, go ahead and explain.
It stems from, well, from my understanding, a book that was called Measure What Matters. That's kind of what was broadly introduced in the business world. And there's now a number of books that expound upon it. But essentially, it's all about collaboratively standing up what's called objectives and key results. And these are things that are supposed to, you know, really be targeted for big, audacious, you know, hairy goals as an organization. That's kind of the genesis. And then you work to define, you know, what are we going to do to make those a reality? And, you know, you can slice and dice it all different ways. Again, there are a number of books that talk about it, but essentially you can approach it from the perspective of the organization as a whole.
John,
you can, yep, John, do it. You can.
Derek, but, he was holding up the book.
Oh, yeah, good. Thank you, Derek. And Derek, feel free to jump in because I know you and I both are really passionate about this. But it's a very flexible framework, and it's, you know, it's not, it doesn't really have a lot of hard and fast rules. So it's very good to apply to finite business scenarios and those things that are a little bit more abstract and maybe not are fully defined for your organization. I guess that'll be my attempt at explaining it.
Well, yeah, as you were explaining that, what jumped to mind was back to that PR or the press release concept of starting with that objective and then working backwards or using that as your guideline. So that's definitely something I'm going to have to look up and learn a little bit more about.
TJ, we do use that Amazon press release concept here. John Nicholas is an expert at that. He's been doing that for his projects. Okay.
Oh, I'm going to have to ask him to see what I can learn from him.
Yeah, he's done it. He did a restructure which was announced on Monday, and again he always does his press release on the restructure, and then he presents it.
Oh yeah, you're right. Actually, I did see one of those, and that was actually amazing. It was very helpful. So I'm gonna have to pull that up and make it a template for myself. All right. I think we have one more room that has something to share.
Marsha, Derek, I just had a quick question on the OKR concept. I know it was a huge sellout. Intel introduced it. You know, John Doerr, I think Andy Grove made it his. You know, that was the big thing that Intel thrived on for many, many years. I mean, the concepts of notion of what doesn't get measured does not improve. All of this came from that. But what Marsha said at the end, which was true, which is those are big, hairy, audacious goals. And what happened then was trying to take an OKR into an IT model, which is we as engineers, we want to see black and white metrics. To map them, that was the biggest thing, difficulty. And then what happens is when you're not able to map it, then comes the notion that CIOs don't understand the business, or you're not able to translate, or the business imperative conversation does not happen, or there is a gap because typically a CEOs from a strategy perspective, they're thinking, oh, I'm only talking 10,000 feet level. Whereas, you know, when we start, I think Gary and, you know, Brad pointed out, when we talk about dashboards, those are real metrics, those are real values and things like that. Then becomes the disconnect in that big thing. I was wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you make very valid points. I mean, this is just like any other methodology. It requires you to stand up a process to actually drive out the adoption of what the actual goal you're trying to accomplish in implementing OKR frameworks. And to your point, a part of your process, you just like anything, you need to be able to have some sort of tool that provides status in a very visible, transparent way. And, I would point and cite that, organizations that I've been a part of, they would use a dashboard to actually report out on OKRs. So to your point, it's not a surprise. It's a part of the language as an organization. It shouldn't just be an IT thing. It should be, hands should be stacked across aisles, across departments, all the way up to the top part of the organization in terms of the process that you're using to drive out the application of the framework.
Does anybody else have anything they'd like to chime in on that gap between business strategy and how we measure it as IT?
I'll just throw it that I don't know if it was Brad's or Gary's or yours, TJ. One of the slide, it just came and went. But what caught my eye was on the top right corner, as much as it was a status report, it said enterprise priority number, which is so cool because that actually shows that there is a tie-in. And when somebody sees that, audience sees that, they talk about, okay, this was our enterprise priority number X or Y, which really makes a difference, because if I were a CEO and looked at it and said it was actually a priority number 21, I'm like, why are we doing this? Or if it is, things like that.
Yep, that's a great call out in terms of our priority numbers, because I will actually say that these priority numbers cause a decent amount of angst, at least within the IT organization, because to a certain level, it's a competition, and we all know about resource constraints. So yes, we have something it's a good starting point and a good measure of where we think that we need to be for where we allocate resources or costs or how important it is to the business. And that's always great when your project is towards the top of that list. But I've also managed projects that are at the bottom. And sometimes those conversations are, well, you're number 17, so I'm working on other things. And I think when Gary came in the door, he was dealing with that culture. And I've heard from him several times that yes, there are some arbitrary numbers in there that we're working against, but at the end of the day, we're going to execute all of them. And we shouldn't be saying, no, we're going to delay your project just because it's at the bottom of whatever number, top, whatever list you're working against, because there's always a lot of desire to deliver all of them, or it wouldn't even be on the list.
Yeah. So Bipin, I'll just add to what you had to say. So when I came in, there was a lot of angst, right? What's our priority? What's our priority? What's our priority? So I said, okay, wait, guys, we'll make a priority. And we did. We have enterprise priorities that is approved by the CEO, CFO, all those guys, okay, and me. I told you, we have the PSC meetings every 2 weeks, look at the priorities. So, but then the other thing I did was I hired a lot of people, okay? I must have hired 50 people in IT. And what I said was the priorities may be priorities, but each project is going to get dedicated resources. And they're not going to steal one resource from the other resource. So for appointments project, it's TJ. That's her project. That's it. We don't tell her, TJ, you do POS tomorrow, well, you go do OMS the other day. Nothing like that. That's your project. You're accountable for that. And so we have added a lot of people in IT. Don't get me wrong. And some contractors, vendors, whatever. But we have staffed every project as a dedicated project. Now, some people may have more than one, but it'll be 2. At the most 3, but not 30 projects. I don't want people doing, I'm doing everything, which means you're really doing nothing. Okay. If you're doing everything, that means you're really doing nothing. So that's one thing we've done. So the only time the priorities are used, okay, Bipin, is when we have a technical challenge, which means we cannot do one project because the other project is dependent on it from a technology standpoint, not from a resource standpoint. For example, we want to build a new POS, but we can't build it until we upgrade our Hybris from the current version to the other version, okay? To the cloud version. We are on premises, we got to go to the cloud. Okay, well, so even though new POS is the #1 enterprise priority in our project list, and Hybris Commerce upgrade would figure nowhere, I've got to do the Hybris Commerce upgrade as a new priority. I just have to bring it in now, slam it in, get it done, because it's holding up my number one project. So that's where the priorities would take place. But otherwise, no, everybody's got a dedicated resource team, and they're free to execute, and they have their own monies and everything. Right, TJ?
Yep. Yeah. Well, and right now I'm enjoying like number 3 on the list, so that I'm happy with it.
Pretty high up there. She's got everybody watching her.
Yep. All right, so we are getting close to time. Is there any other questions or thoughts that the group would like to share with the larger audience or pose to the panelists? See, we've had a few people drop off. I know we're hitting the bottom of the hour here. So thank you. If there's nothing else, I am going to hang out for a little bit. I know that we don't necessarily want to be abrupt about leaving if anybody wants to hang out and chat, but this does conclude the end of the formal portion of the program. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Brad, for sharing all of your insights on IT KPIs and alignment with the business. I think this has been a great discussion.
Yeah,
Thanks,
great.
Brad.
Thanks for having us.
Gary.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks for having us.
Good
Yeah,
information.
thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Great job, TJ.
Nice job,
Thanks,
TJ.
Good night,
Derek.
guys.
Take care.
Bye all.